Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another photo mishmash. This one being broadcast live May 20th, 2020. And I am joined by my good friend and co-host today, David Carr. David, how are you doing?
Good, man. Good. How are you doing, Toby?
Doing all right. I'm doing all right. So David tells me that my audio sounds a little muffled. So chat, let me know if you're hearing that too. We're just hoping. We did some troubleshooting, but we're just hoping it's on mostly David's end, crossing fingers. As you see, we also don't have Steve today, sadly. He's dealing with some basement flooding issues and plumbers that don't quite arrive when they're supposed to. So best wishes for him, and we're looking forward to when he comes back. I'm excited about this show, though, because we got kind of a big show. Even though Steve isn't here, he did send in his picks for the $2,000 camera kit challenge. This is something we started talking about last week. Each of us kind of took what we do in photography and said, all right, if we had a budget of $2,000 and we were starting from scratch, what would we pick? David Carr, are you ready?
I'm ready, man.
All right. I'm ready as well. It was tricky. I'm really curious. I put a rumor out there that I might be considering going used because that's a great way to save money. So you'll have to stay tuned to see if I followed through that with this whole virtual $2,000 anyway, or not. And also we have some great suggestions from our viewers and readers that they sent in that I'm really excited to share, including one that is so incredibly thorough. We have to give it mad props and a toast. I'm drinking a little gin and tonic that Chris splashed up with a little cherry grenadine, I think. Oh, nice. What do you got today?
This is, it's Sprite. With just a little bit of vodka in it. So
all right. It's not the other way around. It's vodka with just a little bit of Sprite in it.
No, yeah. I'm not going to give away the recipe. No, it's good. I had to put something in it, you know. It's like I feel like I'm not like I don't really drink soft drinks. I mean, every now and then with Mexican food, I'll have a Coke, but if I put vodka in it, it feels like it's just like that cancels out the high fructose corn fruit, right?
Exactly. Yeah. The alcohol, combines and molecular stuff. And yeah,
it's amazing. It's so much better for you.
Yeah. But we do have some other camera stuff to talk about on the show. One is a recent judge ruling that might mean DJI can no longer sell these, but these are still okay. We'll talk about that. And we had that rumored price for the EOS R5 that we're all eagerly awaiting more and more information of being somewhere in the neighborhood of $6,700. We've since learned that that's not true, but I want to spend a little bit more time again talking about the price because we all are eagerly awaiting this camera.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I want to say hello to our chat room. Chat room, thank you so much for joining us on this Wednesday afternoon or wherever it is when you are watching. Thank you. Put your questions in the chat. Roy is collecting those, although he's having some super flooding there as well. Roy, I was looking up your address this morning because I know there's like crazy flooding with dams breaking not too far from you. And I couldn't remember the name of the town that you lived in. And
That's Michigan, right? Is that
it is Michigan? Yeah,
Michigan. I just read a little headline about that. My goodness.
And so Steve must be way downriver. That's the issue, huh? I guess down there in Ohio.
Yeah, I don't know. He's downriver from somewhere, some river, some stream.
Yeah. Let's put up a couple banners. Just a reminder, you can follow David Carr on Instagram at DavidCarr_photo. And his link to his Instagram and his YouTube channel is right down below. David, have you gotten up a new edit video yet?
No, you know what? I had every intention of making one this week, and it's just I have had so much going on around the house that I might make one tomorrow and have it out by Friday. So stay tuned. Okay. I'm trying to do everything consistently on the same day, but sometimes it doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's hard. It's even even though we're pretty much confined to being home, there can be lots going on. I'm certainly finding that's true.
Absolutely. Yeah. Staying busy.
Yeah, I did. But you can follow David's YouTube channel right down below and watch any of those previous how I edited videos. I just it's a very detailed, kind of slow, methodical look at the editing process of a single image. It's a nice, it's refreshing from kind of what we do on the show is where we kind of try to get through a couple of them quickly. So you can really see.
Exactly. And I mean, I've thought about it, and I think I've talked about this before, but I've thought about like the length of these videos because some of them are like 40 minutes long, which that's a long video to watch. I understand that. Like, and I'll probably get to where I'm going to do some jump cuts here and there. But I kind of wanted to show people that sometimes just the process of messing around and figuring out what you want to do, it just takes time. And it's not to say that I really finish my photos in 40 minutes. I mean, sometimes they take hours or coming back to them over and over. But this is kind of the general direction that I head in on an edit, and hopefully that gives some people some inspiration in what they can do.
Nice. Yeah. I think there's real value in that. And, you know, longer videos like this one, I think, are fine. People kind of watch them in the background or watch them while they're doing something. Maybe they pull it up on their tablet or their phone while they're actually on their computer.
Yeah.
They're kind of listening. And when they want to look over and see exactly what's happening, then they can, and they go back to doing their work.
I heard somebody making some great points about that very thing the other day, and how, you know, for all of the history of TV and radio, like especially TV, you know, TV shows had to be 30 minutes or maybe an hour, but it was always about brevity, and the news is especially, you know, you get about 7 minutes to cover one story if you're lucky. If you're on the news, like being interviewed, you only get this little slice of time to say what you want to say. And so we just get all these little sound bites. But if all the streaming services have shown us anything, it's that people actually don't mind a long duration. They don't mind binge watching hours and hours of the same show. People, and you know, some of the most popular podcasts are hours long. People like them. And so I don't think people really are always wanting brevity. They just want substance and content. And when they feel like they can tune into something that kind of gels with them and what they like, they'll stay tuned into it. So it's an interesting place we're in, because those little short snippet soundbite things that used to be the way we did all of media, it's kind of going away.
Well, I mean, it go either way. And now I have to say that I released another Monday Minute video that's super, super short.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So my goal is to just offer some of my Lightroom training in a very short kind of format that somebody might come across and say, hey, this is a quick video. I don't know this guy yet, so maybe I'll try it out and try watching it. So I just released one on geotagging, which I know everybody thinks about is about seeing your pictures on a map and being able to kind of navigate back to your pictures. But as far as Lightroom goes, it is an incredibly powerful way to add a bunch of additional keywords with all you need to do is drag and drop onto the map, and you don't even need to be very precise. Awesome. So go watch that. That's linked down below, along with all that other important information.
Yeah, that's good.
And a heads up that I have a banner for it, that we will have Timothy Drury on tomorrow night. Feels like I should put something after that dash right there. So this is going to be episode 2 of our Creative Lounge. I sit down along with David McKay and Allie McKay with Timothy Drury. He is, let's call him a multimedia artist. He has been the keyboardist for Whitesnake. Yeah, the band Whitesnake. And now tours with Don Felder of the Eagles fame, and has toured the world, and now spends a lot of his time and energy doing these performances where he is the sole performer in this cube surrounded by his photographs being projected while he's playing his music. It's pretty cool. Dave McKay has recorded some footage of him doing this, I think last year or maybe 2 years ago, when he toured through Sacramento, California. He's going to be on. I'm really interested to talk to him because, you know, 2 weeks ago we had Mike Tedesco, sports, action, performance-oriented photographer, lots of technical details. This is going to be the complete opposite. Really cool kind of artist focus, not so much technical. I'm excited to hear what he has to say and to share some more of his content. So make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel, or just check back tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Pacific time, where we will share more of that. And if you want to get a little heads up of what Timothy's all about, you can go to timothydrurymusic.com. He's got a nice little website there with all of that content.
That's great.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, it should be cool. That's tomorrow night. Yep. All right. So let's move on to the part of the show that is one of our favorite parts of the show. I like lots of this show, but it's where we sit down and we start to talk a little bit about your images. And as I said, we kind of speed through a fair number of images here to give you some feedback on how you're doing. So I'm going to pop over to Lightroom And first image we're going to pull up is we've got a Jeremy Lavender shot from the Tillamook Forest. And it's so interesting. I actually, when I first pulled this up, when I was pulling these together earlier, I thought this was somewhere right around the Seattle or Pacific Northwest. And in a way, technically, it is Pacific Northwest. It's just a little bit further north than I was thinking, up there in Alaska. This is cool. So, I'm torn. I love the scene. I love the longer exposure, 69 seconds. So the water, all of it is very soft. Now, sometimes some people like to go a little bit shorter and leave a little bit of detail in the water, but I like it here. I think I like that every, square centimeter of that water has this kind of smoother look to it all the way up. I can't tell how I feel about this bridge. David Carr, do you have thoughts?
Yeah. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Just, you know what, Toby? I figured out what the problem was with the audio, just to let you know.
Oh, okay.
It was on my end.
Oh, okay.
A big mistake. Sorry.
No worries.
Anyway, okay. So diving into this photo. Yeah. I mean, the bridge. So it is a bit of like it doesn't have like that classic, old world architecture kind of thing going on. And that's not necessarily a deal breaker, but I almost wish that the shot was a little wider and the bridge was further down and a little less prominent. Like it could still be there. Because I just feel like it's a little bit, well, I don't know. It just doesn't look as picturesque as maybe, there are a lot of other bridges that would look more picturesque than that.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a matter of framing. Like I feel like it comes to the top of the frame maybe a little too much, and there might be room to crop there. I don't know if the original file had any more space around it, but but yeah,
I feel very similar. I think you said it well. The bridge doesn't have any kind of aesthetic to it that's pleasing. It's a very blocky square bridge, and in a way, I feel like it just jumps into the frame in an abrupt way that stops you from taking in from a lot of the beauty.
Yeah, I mean, because the stream is great and the forest and all, all the moss on the trees, all of that's gorgeous. And I just I would wonder if there was like another shot nearby this that was, that he might have taken that would have been a little more, that would still give you all the essence of the forest and everything, but just I understand wanting to put a bridge in, because bridges have they can have this, well, they can really complete a photo, especially with a stream, a river, or whatever. But I mean, one thing I probably would do if I was editing this photo is in Photoshop, I would take one of those pylons or those posts, I would say, and I would probably duplicate it right there. Yeah, I would just to kind of give some symmetry. I mean, I would at least do that just to complete it up a little bit. And yeah, I guess you could kind of do a little mock-up of that in Lightroom. Yeah, I mean, there you go.
There you go. Yeah, just to add a little bit of symmetry, I really think your suggestion of if we had a little bit of a wider shot, so you could still incorporate the bridge, but it doesn't play such a prominent role.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah. And the only other thing I did while you were talking is I just came down here into the color panel and I just tweaked the yellows and the greens to the right a little bit to just kind of make the moss and the green pop. And you could actually up their saturation a little bit as well. Just kind of give them a look there. Yeah. I think there is a very simple composition just down here in these rocks. Yeah. If you could get in tight. This could be a black and white. I just kind of like the, we're very tight here now, but just that contrast of the crispy hard rocks and the softer water flowing around it.
Yeah, definitely.
Very cool. Let's move on. Timmy's got another flowy water picture. No bridge in this one, from Winter Yellowstone Tripp that you were on with him, weren't you, Carr?
Yes. Yeah. Sorry. Who was this again?
Tim Scott.
Oh yeah, of course, Tim. I know Tim. Yeah. And this was a very precarious spot to stand and take a photo. It was very slippery getting up to this little precipice, and I'm surprised nobody fell into the water because we were right on the edge of it. And but yeah, this is Tim, you know, great shot. And this is a tricky one. I remember, I think Tim and I talked about this, and I don't know, Tim, if you have a wider version of this, but I know that I struggled because I shot the same scene the year before when I was there with you, Toby. And I remember there was this one tree off to the left that was really distracting, but you couldn't get it out of the frame and still get a great shot. And so it causes you to come in closer. So I really like the fact that, Tim, that you didn't try to include the sky, because in the shot that I took of this, I did try to include the sky, and I had to do a lot of Photoshop to really make the upper, third of the photo work. So the fact that you just shot the stream, you got the snow, I feel like that was the right call. The tricky thing, and I can speak into this because I've shot this same shot. The white snow going across the bottom is sort of a give or take for me. I don't know if I like having a little strip or not. It does sort of frame it.
Yeah.
But what do you think, Toby?
It's a tough call. That's another thing. We're on the same page today. It's another thing that I was looking at and can kind of go either way. There is enough detail in it that you can tell that it's not just a white featureless section of snow. I think when I bring this in and I look up here at the little navigator or just crop and finish, now it feels like I'm missing part of the story down here.
Exactly.
And I'm okay with missing part of the story when we know that it's bordered by an actual, physical element of the scene. And so I'm inclined at this time to say I like it in.
Yeah, I think I do too. It's I just encourage people to always just try, see what it looks like without, don't be afraid to just play with all sorts of different crops and configurations. Because the scene, it's an awesome scene. And I mean, this raging river cutting right through this snowy park, it's incredible. From what I'm seeing and the way I'm seeing it, I would love to see a very contrasty black and white, maybe where the blacks get really black. I mean, not where it looks gimmicky, but there might be just a hint more. There might be just a little more drama to that black and white. And maybe, I don't know if the texture and clarity should get a little bump here and there. Maybe just texture.
Yep. I think that's a great call. I like the blacks coming down. I might, be careful, Timmy. Try to bring them down without getting large amounts of totally featureless black like I just did in this quick little example. But I think having that darker over there certainly looks good. And let's hit the J again and bring the whites up and see. You can just start to see the red appear in the bottom right corner. So I brought them up about +10. And
actually, it looks really cool now with that white strip across the bottom. I mean, if he has a slightly larger frame of this, it might be good to just include a little bit more white or go into Photoshop and add some with content aware. Only because if you get into like printing and framing, that little curve there might get a little too close to the edge.
Yep. Good point. I don't really see much else that I would work on here. Maybe take a brush and come through some of the river rocks with a little bit of extra clarity, and maybe a brush that softens clarity on some of the flowy water. But in general, we have a 1 second shutter speed here, and I think that was a good call because we have some nice kind of lines of the flowing water and still features without it being kind of distracting. Nice. Thanks, Tim. All right, Susan Tripp has got Hawkeye,
nice.
Good name. And first, kudos when we put our crop grid on. We've got the rule of thirds running, and we've got really close to our hawk's eye in the top left third, and of course gives room into the rest of the frame for looking in. Nicely done there. I like that.
Yeah, I think that's it's great. I mean. And it looks like it's very in focus. I mean, I don't know. Is the eye in focus or is it?
To me, it looks like, and we're being picky here, Susan, but to me, it looks like focus is a little in the front. It almost looks like these needles here are just a tiny bit sharper than the bird's eye. And so you really want to be careful and really pay attention to where that focus point is landing when you are using a telephoto lens, because even at f8, your depth of field can be quite narrow. And David McKay has actually done a fantastic video on that. He's sitting on horseback in Mongolia teaching you about how narrow your depth of field can be when you're shooting with longer focal lengths. So, and the other thing I'd say be careful about, I don't see it necessarily as an issue here, but you're all the way down at 125th of a second, which really shooting at 400 millimeters, you should be closer to about 1/400th of a second, unless, you know, you were on a tripod or something like that. And of course, if this bird took off, you'd want to be nice and fast to capture that sharp.
Yeah. The only other thing I would say, I mean, there might be some tonality stuff, you know, you could maybe bring out a little more drama in it. But, and then I would also possibly try an 8x10 crop horizontal and just get a little bit closer in on the, or maybe, you know, maybe it's not 8x10. I don't know. I just thought it seemed
I think
like,
that looks good.
Yeah. It just seemed like some of the information was at the top was almost like a little bit superfluous.
Yep. I'm going to real quick try, where is my de-inf outside radial filter? Radial filter emphasize subject. I'm just going to throw a radial filter and make sure it's inverted on the hawk. And then I'm going to duplicate this and switch it to de-emphasize outside the subject and make sure it's not inverted. So all that's doing, and I show this in a video on Pen, is just kind of the inside circle adds a little texture and clarity to the hawk. The outside circle decreases the texture and clarity. It can kind of help make a subject that isn't so sharp seem a little bit sharper. That way.
Well, and it also, I mean, from what I can tell, it looks like the kind of image that could be, you know, you might be able to use like topaz or something and really kind of just finish off the sharpness of the bird. But it is definitely something to be mindful of. It's very difficult sometimes when you're shooting wildlife to, you know, especially when it's happening right in front of you. You don't know how long the bird's going to be there. Maybe you just don't even realize what your shutter speed is. You know, you're just trying to make sure you get the shot, because we've all been there. But getting sharpness, you know, getting that eye sharp is the more you can really learn to do that and to really, really hone in on it and take multiple shots, because sometimes your camera will hunt a little bit between the one frame and the next, and one will be perfectly in focus. The next one will be out of focus. And, but that, I mean, focus, you know, when you see a truly like sharp image where the face, the eye is completely sharp, there's nothing like it. So that's what we're all going for, is ultimately to get as sharp as we can with those, you know?
Yep. I'm gonna pop it into, oh, my trial expired.
Oh no. Well, you could buy it right now.
Yeah, I could. Oh, but look, it'll still give me updates. All right, so we'll come back to that, because as you suggested, that was kind of in the back of my mind too. I think topaz would be something that could make some further adjustments to this that would be beneficial.
Yeah. It's definitely a great shot, though. It's not one like it's not like throw it away because it's not tack sharp, you know.
Yeah. Okay. And now, of course, I have just frozen everything up in my. Let's see. No, cancel. Everything's broken. Quit. There we go. And on to Pam Case has got this rose. I feel like, Pam, you submitted a rose before that was a broader shot, and maybe Steve or you, David, had a suggestion of getting in tight on it. And so now we've got this one. It sounds like you're paying attention, Pam. Yeah. I like that. Nice. Thumbs up to you. Also, Pam, I know we need to talk, because we have to come back to you for some of your organization there. We've been talking about that. All right. I love this tight shot. Yeah. But does it feel upside down or turned? I don't know. Are you getting that at all?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely one that like that. Yeah, it's funny because when you flipped it, that way, it feels, I don't know, it just feels more correct to me.
It does to me too.
Even though like flowers can droop, they can kind of grow at different angles and stuff. I just feel like we tend to look down on the bud more than, you know, up at it. So, I mean, granted, you know, in nature, anything can happen, but I don't know. I think that might be a little bit nitpicky, but I do feel like it's stronger that way.
I think so too. I think there's a lot to love here and not a lot to do. I'm going to throw that radial filter on again that ups the texture right on the center. I don't want to do it out here. It's just going to kind of bring in the noise. I like how it gets softer and a little bit out of focus.
Yeah.
Let's just see what happens if we bring this up to a higher amount. Excuse me. And let's do a little bit of noise reduction there as well. I think that's nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of those like simple images where there's not a whole lot to say about it other than great job.
Should we channel Steve for a second though? Because I feel like not talking about flipping it, but maybe a black and white.
Yeah, I mean, I love a black and white. When one thing I do a lot of times when I'm in Lightroom, and I talk about this in my editing videos, is I'll get in the loop mode, just clicking L twice. And that way I can really see just kind of like a pure, like how would that look hanging on the wall, you know, like as a piece of art. Sometimes just getting rid of all that stuff around it helps me to see like, if that was a big black and white hanging on the wall, how would that look? Or if it was the color, how would that, it just kind of helps you visualize what would that look like.
Yeah. I tell you, this is a great suggestion. I love to go loop and just see it on the black now. I think this is stunning.
Yeah, it looks nice.
Yeah. I see people in chat asking if it has a white vignette. I mean, I think some are half joking, but it does feel a little brighter around the edges. But I think that's just the soft fall off. And it's lovely.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, black and white or color. I mean, Heather was saying, the yellow is so beautiful, the buttery tone. I agree. I mean, I love it when you have a photo that just works both ways. It's like, because sometimes we're trying to fix something that has weird colors. So we're like, well, let's just go black and white. It's so much stronger. But there wasn't a lot of color there other than the yellows. So it's not like anything's competing with anything else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that looks awesome.
Yeah. So I just added a little bit more sharpening, but masked it. So it really is trying to just sharpen really the edges there. And it starts to look a little painterly, but I think that's really nice.
Yeah.
I'd love to see chat. Everybody spam in chat, color or black and white. What do you prefer? Let's put them side by side real quick here. I'm going to create a virtual copy and set this one back to color. And then we've got them sitting there side by side for a second. So I'll just let you look at it. What happens if we hit L in this mode? Oh, it does work. So
there you go.
Yeah, that's the L key, as David Carr suggested just a second ago. It's that kind of lights out view, and it's a nice way to see.
Yeah.
Cool.
I definitely recommend doing that as you're editing every now and then. Just like see it as a piece of art. Don't see it as something I'm editing. Just see it as like, if this was the print hanging on the wall, how would it look,
Looks like colors jump into an early lead, but we do have some fans of the black and white in there as well. Also, just a reminder, if you're watching and you haven't yet, please just hit that thumbs up. That's a quick, easy way to thank us for our time. All right, we'll keep an eye on the chat. Let's move on to this. Another flow. I've got a soft spot in my heart for flowy water pictures, so I love that we've had several today. And this is from Robert, Green River Gorge. And this is pretty beautiful.
Yeah, it is. It's I don't know how much of the light was intentional as far as, I don't know if the left side and the bottom left corner were darkened, but I actually like that they're darker. I like that it feels like there's just this glint of light coming in across this sort of all these rocks and
I wonder if we could take that a little bit further. I'm going to get the brush tool and shadows and blacks down a little bit and paint over here a little bit. Just to kind of, so the viewer has really just one. It's pretty subtle. Let's be a little bit more dramatic about it. It really gives the viewer a single path to follow into the gorge. We hit that reflection in a little bit of water, and then of course up to the falls. So that's nice. Something, and this is something David McKay just always does really well in his editing, with just a little bit of dodging and burning, kind of emphasizing or making, even if there isn't one naturally, kind of a path of light for the viewer to follow.
The ferns on the left, there's three, I guess those are ferns. I mean, if those weren't there, I feel like this image would struggle because there's, things fall into shadow there. It's cool rock and everything, but it would just be, there's a balance here to this photo. And I mean, I don't know if you would want to dodge those ferns a little bit, just, I mean, like a smidge, just to bring them up a touch more. Just might be worth playing around with, but
yeah, I like that. Shadows. I think these are maidenhair ferns, just for people's info, and they're beautiful because they're so symmetrical.
Yeah, gorgeous.
And I love the way they grow, so they stand out just a little bit more. Robert's in chat and says this spot is just 15 minutes from his house, and he's in a cave. And Robert, I know you live around here, so awesome. Maybe you could let me know this awesome spot, or I could probably just Google the name. Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion. Kevin in chat is suggesting flipping it. Now, as we always say, if this is a spot that's known, flipping it can present a problem because people can immediately look at it and say, well, that's not right. But Kevin's suggestion is that we then come in on the left-hand side and follow up to the falls.
I was wondering how that might look, I mean, I'll be honest. Like, a lot of times for me, flipping is sort of just 6 1/2 dozen or the other. And that's just my own personal take on it. I mean, there are times when I feel like it's really helped an image. I actually flipped one today of my own that I thought it just looks stronger flipped. But so sometimes you just want to ask yourself, do I like it just because it's different, or do I like it because it really is serving the photo well? And I don't know. This is one that, aside from that factor you're talking about, where like if this is a known place that someone's going to be like, what? That's backwards. I don't suspect that this is one of those kind of spots, but it could be. But it's kind of like either way it works for me personally.
Yeah. Pam says no flipping today in honor of Steve and dealing with his plumbing issues. I don't know. I think, Kevin, it was a good suggestion. And again, if the spot, if it doesn't ruin this spot, I feel like it had some merit.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really have anything else to add. We like the dark down here. Maybe could bring up just a teeny bit more detail in this area, and also reduce the greens. Let's see real quick if I put a new brush, a little bit redder, and just kind of brushed in here, just to warm that up and kind of match the warm tone over here, but not the brightness level. Not really seeing a whole lot of difference there. Just a little bit, but that's pretty minor. Beautiful shot, Robert.
Very nice. Very nice.
Very nice. All right. Hey, thanks folks for sending those in. If you are watching the show and you're not a Photo Enthusiast Network member, one of the benefits is getting your images reviewed with a little bit of editing here on the show. We have an awesome price for new members. You can go find out more about that at photorec.tv/pen. It tells you all of the information. The price is really, really good. And you're also joining an awesome community of people. Many of them are in the chat. It really is the people in this community that I'm most proud of. I'm proud of you all. You make me proud. So you should consider it. It's a fantastic community to have. And right now, why so many of us are isolated in our homes, not spending time in the real world as much, having a virtual community where you can post jokes about how much camera gear you're going to buy when this quarantine is finally over. You'll have people that appreciate it and share it with it. So consider that. All right, let's hit some news stories before we share our $2,000 picks. So just a reminder, show notes are linked right down below this. We're not going to hit everything necessarily, but we might hit a fair amount of it. And the first thing that I mentioned that I want to talk about is the Canon EOS R5. Australia Canon seller, not Canon official, posted on their for sale page the EOS R5 with a price tag of, I think it was like 10,500 Australian dollars, which when you put that through various conversions for the US, it comes out to be about 6,700. Canon Rumors just hours later was like, no, that's not going to be the price. And that website removed it. And now all they have is information that says $200 deposit down to reserve your chance to pre-order, basically. When I first saw that, I thought, Yeah, that could be. Just a reminder, this EOS R5 has specs that are pretty much out of this world still. 8K video, raw video to internal memory cards, or not internal, but you don't have to go to a Atomos device is what I'm saying.
Right.
And that is some crazy specs just right there. The photo side of things is kind of within the normal realm. I think we think it's going to be a 42 or 48 megapixel sensor. And so 6700, I was like, well, if this 8K RAW is true and serious, then it might be right. But then, of course, Canon Rumor said, no, it's not. And as other people have pointed out, you've got the interview with one of the Canon folks that said, this target market for this is our 5D Mark III and IV users, which would very much seem to point it at trying to keep it at that price, which has been $3,500.
Yeah.
I've seen smart people suggest 3,900. I've seen smart people suggest all kinds of things, but I think 3,900 is probably about where this will land.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, the Lumix, what was it? The RS1 or the, is that what that's called? I know that the high megapixel, high resolution version of that camera was higher than, higher price than like a Z7 or the, or really just any of the cameras in that category. It was a little higher in price.
Yeah.
I feel like there's kind of this new interim price level where it's not like the super expensive, $6,500, but it's also not. Yeah. Okay. So I guess that's not.
Yeah. Has it come down at all? I can't remember. 3,600 with lens though. You're up at 4,500.
Okay. Well, I thought it was more when it first came out.
I thought so too, but I liked this camera a lot. I think it had a lot of really nice, fancy design features, but it was, for a mirrorless camera, really big and heavy. I know not everybody buys a mirrorless camera for lighter weight, but it weighs more than a 5D Mark IV. Yeah,
it's a big camera.
It's a big camera.
Yeah, so I think with the Canon, 6700 just seemed outrageous to me, because you can buy their flagship 1DX it's 6,500, so I can't imagine that this would top that or even come close to it, really. And really those I had the D5, which was a $6,500 camera as well, crazy money for a camera, but it just that's a category of camera that most people aren't going to really go to because they're not shooting sports or wildlife or anything like that. And so there's a certain price point there that I think a lot of these cameras, even as amazing as the specs are on the R5, it's just not going to get, I just don't think it's going to get that high.
Yeah.
It just seems outrageous.
Yeah. So I think maybe you were remembering the S1H. That's 3,900.
Okay, that's
the more video focused one that shoots 6K, and that's a big deal that it shoots 6K.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, this has a small fan. Off one kind of, there's a little space for it. I'm not seeing it, that I thought to help it shoot that higher resolution video. And again, no sign of a fan or air ports on this EOS R5.
Incredible.
So it'll be really interesting to see. But all right, David, you and I are saying we're putting it down at 3,900.
Yeah.
It just, I think they'll really struggle to sell it, especially this year in this market, any higher.
Yeah, I agree. Once you see a 4 at the beginning or anything higher than that, it's I think a deal breaker for a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah. And so let's go back here. All right. So moving on, I mentioned, first off, real quick, I'm not going to talk about it too long because I don't think many of our audience is interested in the vlogging crowd. But Sony has a camera coming. It's the ZV1. And basically, it looks like the RX100 series, but with an actual flip out screen, a side flip out screen, not only this silly bottom that gets blocked by tripod handles or top that gets blocked by microphones, but an actual, my link didn't work to the Sony Alpha Rumor site. So that's all to say about that. It's probably going to be in that price range too, I bet, of somewhere around a higher end point and shoot. It is a fixed lens.
Okay.
It does zoom, but it's fixed. So that's interesting. Interesting that they still see a huge market in the vlogging audience.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Your son does some YouTube videos, music and things like that. Is he on the vlogging side of things, or is it really just kind of sitting and playing musical instruments?
It's more just sitting and playing. I mean, he's got the whole TikTok thing going and all, you know, there's a whole genre there that I don't even understand, but you know, he reaches a good number of people with it. And,
that's cool.
Yeah.
So does the camera he uses have a flip out screen?
Well, no. So my oldest son's doing the music stuff more, and he's just using his phone. My younger son will do videos for YouTube he's got a Canon T5i, and so I guess it has a flip out screen, and it seems to be working really well for him. So people come to my house, they're like, "Why do you have a Canon? I thought you were a Nikon guy." I'm like, "It's not mine. It's my son."
You're platform agnostic.
Yeah, exactly. I don't care as long as it gets the job done.
That's right. And does Nikon have a fully flip out? Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Yeah, they do. It's just unfortunately not on any of the cameras that I want. So.
Yeah. Gotcha. All right, moving on. This is great, especially since we're talking to Robert right now in the chat and trying to get him to tell us this of the location. There's an interesting article on Petapixel about whether or not you should tag the location of the places that you are shooting from. And I don't, David Carr, do you have any opinion about that?
I haven't thought about it, so I don't know what the downside is.
The gist is of for well-known places. I'll just share my feelings and then share what some other people feel. For well-known places like Horseshoe Bend or Zion National Park, I have absolutely no hesitation about sharing my locations. These places have been built and designed now to allow a lot of people to come. There's places where you're supposed to shoot from. But for photographers that might be venturing off into lesser known spots, and especially where maybe they put forth a lot of work to get there, or you know, maybe it's not set up to handle, you know, there's small parking lots or the trails are really fragile. Then many of them are reluctant to share their locations because they don't want the Instagram horde to be like, let's all go there. And then suddenly
of course,
it's trampled. That kind of a really popular example was last year's wildflower blooms, where people were in Southern California and some parts of the other Southwest were just going nuts and literally trampling over flowers and turning these gorgeous fields into like a spider web of dirt trails.
Oh, that's terrible.
I know Nick Page feels very strong about this. He's a fantastic landscape photographer here in Washington State. He also does tours and travels all around. He tags all of his photos. They could be from Iceland, Norway, from wherever. He tags them all Mesa Arch.
Oh, okay.
And it's funny, I often just read his comments just to watch for people go like, what? This is at Mesa Arch? Or funny. A lot of his followers now kind of play along and is like, oh, Mesa's Arch was having a beautiful sunset that night, which it's like an iceberg on a beach or something.
Okay, so, that's funny.
His goal is to kind of mess up the whole algorithm and you know, make people like not be able to easily find places unless they're doing their work on their own.
Yeah, there's definitely a case to be made for that.
Yeah. So I think it's good. I think, you know, again, if it is a place that you've been, I think there's a place that can handle photographers coming in larger numbers, then I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with tagging it. But if it's like on private property or if it's a quieter location, you're certainly within your right not to share that location. And it's probably better for the spot too as well.
Yeah.
Common sense. All right. And then I tease this. Maybe DJI will no longer be able to sell this big drone, but they could still sell this little one. It all has to do with a patent that is, in my mind, a little bit ridiculous. So this came out this week that a judge ruled in favor of Autel. They're another drone maker based here in the US, but they actually are a Chinese company, the same as DJI. Autel has a patent that that describes the method of an aircraft that looks like this with rotary arms and the propellers being click locked in, basically. And that's how many of DJI's propellers work as well. And the judge was like, yeah, DJI, you're violating that patent. You're going to have to stop selling those drones that use this mechanism here in the US as soon as July, possibly. Why does this little guy not matter? Because these propellers screw on with a little Phillips screwdriver. This is the Mavic Mini. So it doesn't include all of DJI's drones, but it does include most of the more popular ones.
Yeah.
Many of the more popular ones. I don't think this is going to happen.
Yeah.
This, these patents are ridiculous at times. I know the original idea of them was great and still useful at times, but so many times now, after the fact, people patent these incredibly general patents and then just kind of go after other people and be like, you're doing what I said, I sue you. And sometimes even the patent can be filed after your initial development. And that's true of the DJI. They're true of DJI. They had stuff back in 2013 before this patent was filed that used this technique. But apparently the way Autel worded it and then presented it to the judge, it's silly. A couple things could happen here. You want to say something?
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. A judge could look at this. A higher judge could look at this and say, "Look, this patent is too general. This,
Yeah, right.
It's silly. Let's throw it out." There's been precedent of that in other tech cases in the past. Also, though, these are two Chinese-based companies. Probably neither of them really kind of wants to see this outcome, and so they might work something out that maybe DJI does have to share some profits or pay some penalty to Autel,
right,
but continue to sell here as well. Or the Chinese government could even step in and be like, "Hey, this isn't good, so fix this."
It's so interesting, though. I mean, it falls into that classic category. We're so famous in America for things like people who sue McDonald's because the coffee burned them because on the cup it says caution hot, but still I'm going to sue. Like we're such a litigious society. It's just and I saw that this in music, in the music industry all the time. We hear about these stories about this one little progression of notes sounds sort of like the progression of notes in this other song, and so we're going to sue you. We need all this money. But what's funny with that, because I understand it to some degree, but what's funny is how many things just completely go on untouched. I mean, there are so many melodies that have been used in multiple songs, and you never hear about a lawsuit. But then every now and then something that's really random will just pop up. And so, I mean, I get it. Like intellectual
what triggers that? Is there something that triggers that? Is just somebody within that one band's that's like, hey, that sounds like something that my band put together?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is sort of like it just takes somebody who is like, I'm going to fight this. We actually, the band I was in, we had a song we were working on. We were finished with it pretty much in the studio. We'd been working really hard on it. And then we heard another song from another group that was sort of in our genre that had the same pretty much the same melody in this one part. And our singer who wrote the song was like, man, he's like, did I hear that and just I didn't realize it? Like it was, was it subliminal? Because we were never about copying. And I don't think most people in any of these industries are like, I'm going to copy what they're doing. Now, obviously in the tech world, yes, companies do copy each other's technology and then find their own way to skew the patent on it. But it's just, I don't think this is going to go far. Who knows? But DJI is such a big company and has such a, I don't know. They just have such a presence and they kind of are synonymous with drones. And I don't know.
Yeah, I just don't see this happening. And I know DJI has a huge lobbying, presence here in the U.S. as well. They play a huge role in the FAA rulings, and that doesn't always go their way.
Right.
But I would think that there'd be some pressure.
I would think so.
Yeah. All right. I'll just Photoshop updates on the iPad. You now have the curves tool, and it is pressure sensitive with a pen. I was going to ask Steve about that. David Carr, do you have iPad that you do Photoshop stuff on?
No, I don't yet.
Neither do I.
Yeah, I keep hearing more and more about that, but then I don't know if it's working well. I know that there've been some glitches in the past, and there's been promise there, but I don't know if it's ready. Is it?
Yeah.
I mean, who knows?
Yeah, again, it's the latest iPads are really powerful devices, just as good as last year's laptops, really, in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
But it is that interface is just not as comfortable and a little bit more. If you're working on just one image at a time, and you really do like the pen kind of editing, then I think there's a lot of benefit to it. And if not, then I think laptops are still the way to go, especially if you need to kind of ingest a decent amount of images.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and I would love to be able to edit right on the screen with a pen. I mean, I do think that I could get used to that pretty quickly, but it is a matter of like the storage and the ease of just kind of getting my photos. I mean, I guess if you're really working on one as a true art piece, one at a time, I could see the merits of doing that. And I have an Intuos, tablet, and I don't use it a lot simply because I have to get it out and plug it in. And I don't like to use it as my main, source of navigating my screen. So it's only when I'm editing like a portrait or something where there's a lot of very minute details, the pen does come in handy. And it is kind of interesting that we have our hand down here on the desktop and we're looking at a screen. It's just this weird, but I think we're all kind of used to it. So, but like I said, I could totally get used to it when the technology is really up to snuff. I think that would be kind of awesome to be able to just edit right on the image.
Yeah. I think so too. I mean, they do have those really nice Cintiq monitors, but you gotta pay a lot of money for them.
I know. Yeah,
a lot of money. All right, and the last thing, I thought this was interesting because Washington State, as you know, we still are locked down, really. Some counties are starting to move towards opening up. But Washington State published an opening up guide that included photography business. So I'm just going to pull this up real quick. One of the things, the headline is Inslee, that's our governor's name, issues additional guidance for construction, golf, and photography in phase 2. Construction and golf and photography. All right. But I just thought it was pretty cool that we are listed, and it just gives it is a 3-page PDF for phase 2 professional photography COVID-19 requirements. That's pretty common sense stuff. If if work with no touch posing, it's clear that some photographers helped them build this together because it uses an intelligent language. Use outdoor sessions as much as possible. If you're using studio sessions, wipe things down in between client sessions. Also, if you have a waiting room, remove any materials that people can be touching, like magazines and brochures to look at, things like that. At times, and sanitize the bathrooms as well. And that's pretty much it. But I just thought it was kind of cool that I haven't seen. I haven't been watching other states, but I haven't seen anything specific about opening back up for photography. I know. As here in Washington State, all across the country, this is starting to get into the very busiest season for a lot of people as families want their kind of spring portraits done and people are starting to have weddings. It's neat to it's good to see some thoughtful stuff behind this.
Yeah, and I haven't heard in Georgia any specific guidelines on photography, but our state is opening up pretty rapidly. And I got to say, I mean, because when our governor decided to open the state back up, there was a lot of backlash. A lot of people were like, this is a bad idea. We're going to see a huge spike. And I will say, and I was kind of with them and pretty skeptical. I will say things look pretty good so far.
That's what I've been hearing.
We're not having any spikes, the lowest numbers of, hospitalizations in a long time. So, it's a good feeling to know that I think we're cautiously opening back up. And so for me as a photographer, I mean, I'm actually shooting a wedding next Tuesday.
Wow.
But it's a very small wedding at a restaurant, and it's only going to be for a couple of hours. Like I'm only shooting just a little small ceremony with some distance. And so, but it'll be good to work and to see how that environment feels, So
yeah. Cool. Very nice. All right. I think that's all the stories that I wanted to cover there. What I was pulling up and getting ready for is the headline of the show was $2,000 starting from scratch. What would you buy today? And this is a kind of interesting topic, I think, to visit from time to time as things change. we're going to hold on to yours, David, and we're going to hold on to Steve's and mine. And let's go to a couple of readers' suggestions first. Sure. We've got Robert, who's in chat, or was a little while ago. I haven't looked in a moment. He's taking a swing at this. He suggests the Sony A6000. So that's the older crop style point and shoot from Sony with the Tamron 28-75 lens. That's a full frame compatible lens. And a Sammy 12mm lens for your wide angle. Mi Photo backpacker travel tripod. You fit a Sensei bulb air blower in there. That's good because the mirrorless camera, you got to keep that sensor clean. And after tax, that all comes to $1,938. What he likes about this is good value on the body. So, it does come with a 16-55 lens too, which, yeah, let's skip over that because they're not great. That Tamron lens, being a full frame, is going to follow you to your next camera, assuming you stay with Sony. And you do get, doesn't offer 4K video, but you get a 24 megapixel sensor for $500. And the Tamron, I think, is about $600-700. That's where a bulk of that price is. And the Sammy, what is that, $200-300, I think. So overall, $1,938. I think that's good. My only struggle is you're either using that 16-55 lens, which really isn't great, or you're using the Tamron 28-75, which on a crop sensor starts you at what, like 35 or so, which that'd be a great setup for kind of portraits or, little bit longer focal lengths for landscapes, which I like, but you certainly are in a little bit more of a pinch for wider angle unless you put the Sammy on. But it's a pretty cool kit. Kit.
Definitely.
I think what a lot of folks find, and this is what I find too, I don't know about you, David, is as soon as you want to add a quality lens or two, that sucks your money up quick.
Absolutely.
So you either have to decide, go a little bit more for a body and then be kind of left with maybe a kit lens or nothing for lenses, which that kind of violates the rule. You want something you need to photograph with, or you're really kind of making sacrifices on the body to make sure you can get decent glass. David Newbold suggests a Sony A7 Mark II. That is Sony's previous version's full frame camera. It's also a 24 megapixel camera, but it is full frame. That comes in at $1,000 and includes a 28-70 lens. That's Sony's kit lens for the full frame. It's not a great lens, but it's decent. It certainly gets you shooting. There's an extra battery in this package, a 64 gigabyte SD card. You can get 2 more 64 gigabyte SanDisk cards and the Sigma 24-70 f2.8 art lens for $1,000. And sell. I didn't read all of this, David. You suggest sell the 28-70 on eBay for $150, and after the sale, minus eBay fees, David, good job on how detailed you are here. You've spent right about $2,000. And his reasoning is you get a capable full frame camera paired with a quality lens that remains a good pick, even if you upgrade later to something like the A7 III or A7 R3 or even A7 R4. That's true. That Sigma 24-70 is a great lens and is an all-around good lens. He'd rather start off with a small quality kit than to have multiple lenses or gadgets that are lesser quality, since a good lens can last through many camera bodies.
That's good.
And then Ian, Jim's Journey 3 on Instagram, he goes for the Sony A7 Mark II with a 28-70 lens. He's working in English pounds. Is that right? Yeah, pound. But with that said, he can also work in the Sony 50mm f1.8, 2 extra batteries, the K&F Concept ball tripod, 2 Sony Tough 64 gigabyte SD cards, a little SanDisk Extreme SSD 1 terabyte hard drive, Spider Widow holster, and he includes Lightroom, a Think Tank backpack, and a polarizer filter. And this is the cheers to him, 70 CLs. What is CL? That's a measurement, a liquid measurement that they use outside the US. I feel really ignorant.
Centiliters?
Centiliters? I think you're right. You're right. Anyway, 70 centiliters of London dry gin.
That's good. Yeah.
Brings his total to 1,999 pounds and 88 cents.
Wow.
Nice job, Ian.
Right on the money.
You win the toast, but I think all of you were incredibly thoughtful about this, and I think all presented good, solid packages.
That's great.
Let me pull up Steve's suggestion and share. It always takes me longer to share the screen than I want to, so then I just kind of awkwardly talk through it.
That's all right.
Here it is. Here, Steve went with the MePhoto Road Trip aluminum travel tripod, $160, a Lexar 128 gigabyte SD card, a Fuji battery, which gives away that his camera pick is the Fuji X-T3 with 18 to 55 lens. So this is Fuji's previous crop sensor model X-T3. Oops. Sorry, zooming out there. It is a very nice, good all-around camera, quite capable. Now, I believe Steve was thinking, I gave him kind of the task of, you shoot mostly real estate, Steve. Approach this from the real estate and being able to get the job done with the 18 to 55. We'll have to ask him next week, though, when he's on, is the 18 wide enough for him? On a crop sensor, that's actually, 24-ish? Is 24 wide enough for his real estate work? I know he doesn't like to shoot as wide as many real estate photographers do. It's funny, the other day I showed Chris a picture of one of the houses in the neighborhood that just went on market. And she's like, I don't recognize that. It was shot from the corner of their front yard with a ridiculously wide angle lens that made the yard look like it was an acre in size when really it's maybe a quarter of an acre.
Yeah, I think you got to be careful with those big wide lenses. I mean,
yeah. So
I've been guilty of that, but
I know Steve is really careful about that. So I'm just curious, does this match for him? But this is a great setup too. A solid, the X-T3. I really kind of wanted to go Fuji as well for my pick, but I just couldn't quite make it work when I wanted to add a lens or two of the kind that I wanted. So I didn't. David Carr, what do you got for us?
Well, I had originally just, had a very minimal kit. It was going to be a used Nikon Z6 because I love that camera, and the 24 to 70 f4 because I could find all of that for just around 1900. But that's just a camera and a lens. That's not a tripod. That's not. But the other kit I really came up with, I think, would be probably better. Would be, because I'm a Nikon guy, a Nikon D750. You can get a used one for under $1,000 now, and they're fantastic camera. People love those cameras. And that, with that, a Nikon 24 to 120 f4 is a great lens because it's wide, but it's got a good amount of telephoto. 120 is not super telephoto, but for portraiture, it's great. And it works really great as an all-around travel camera or camera lens, all-around travel lens, I should say. So you got those, and then like a MePhoto Road Trip tripod you could throw in there, and maybe a 77 millimeter polarizing filter might be good for some landscape stuff. And then a couple SD cards. That's got me at $1,916. That's a pretty decent little start off kit, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's great. And, I'm really glad that you brought up it's interesting. Nobody else, you're the first to really say DSLRs are still certainly a viable option for starting out. I went, and I think many people went, these kind of mirrorless is the future, but you get this, you go to older Canon cameras too, older Canon DSLRs, Canon 6D or 6D Mark II. Just because that tech is a little bit older, they still take fantastic photos. Yeah. And yes, it's a little bit bulkier too than today's mirrorless cameras, but can save you a lot of money. Well,
and that way you're getting full frame, and so because a lot of times, people who start off with a crop sensor, there's nothing wrong with a crop sensor camera, but typically if you own one, you're kind of longing for the full frame. So if you can get into a full frame, even buying a used camera that's got so much life left in it, and then get a good versatile lens like a 24 to 120 or a Canon 24 to 105, it's not the creme de la creme of lenses necessarily, but it's a great lens and a great just all around kind of get you going type of lens. So those are the two of the most important things.
Yeah. I think it's interesting too. I just want to go back for a second though. You said the Z6 used with the Z24 to 70 f4. Is that right?
Yes.
That'll come in under $2,000.
I found one today. Now I had to go to Facebook Marketplace to a special Nikon resale forum because the Z6 is it's hard to find them used. B&H, Adorama, there are no used ones that I'm seeing right now. So I think they're pretty hot cameras, but I would personally, I would probably go in that direction more than to a DSLR. But if I need to stay under 2,000 and get a little bit more kit, a little bit more to travel with, a tripod, some SD cards, maybe an extra battery. I mean, to kind of round out the kit a little bit more.
Yeah. I'm not going to grade you or anybody.
Yeah,
everybody did a great job. And I think it's hard when you try to really round out the kit because, your budget this was made up, but
right.
Your budget's loose.
Yeah.
I saw Robert said he almost went with the Z50. I think that's a very capable camera too. I still would really, I wish I had a crystal ball to see where Nikon is going with that. Saw a rumor the other day that they might like to make the Z mount medium format as well. It should be able to support that. It's wide enough so that they would have this huge kind of range of from APS-C, full frame, and medium all under the same mount would be interesting as well.
Be awesome.
So we'll see that. And John Mayfield says the Nikon D40X, the 18 to 50 kit, and spend the rest on toilet paper, resell the next pandemic, and buy anything I want. You're a funny guy, John. You're a funny guy.
It's funny.
All right. So I went with something similar to a couple other suggestions here, and that is a Sony camera. I was surprised, actually, by the lack of used cameras on B&H right now in the areas that I was looking for. Very few Sony cameras were being sold used on B&H. I kind of expected more as people got into this pandemic and maybe, are on a little bit of harder times or saying, look, I'm not really photographing. I need a little more cash now, but I didn't see that. So I went with the Sony A6400 with a 16 to 50 lens, which I'm not super excited about. I'll admit that right up front, but it'll get the job done for a period of time. The reason I went with the A6400 is I approach this from the standpoint of, like, I need to shoot video for this channel. And I'm also very much a generalist with my photography, a lot of just kind of general travel and landscape and a lot of video. So I wanted that 4K, higher quality 4K that the A64 is capable of. I also wanted that fast focus for a little bit more of the wildlife. And I wanted a wildlife capable lens that went along with that. And Sony has, I don't think I've put up an official review of this. I was at the Sony the 70 to 350 lens. It was launched along with the A6600 and 6100. I can't remember when, last fall in New York was the launch for that. And this lens is fantastic. It's getting a little pricey, but 350 on a crop gets you somewhere well north of 400, and that's decent for wildlife. And also I love longer lenses for wildlife as well. And this kit here has a little camera bag and it's got an SD card.
Nice.
But it didn't have a tripod, so I had to throw a tripod in there. And I'm a little embarrassed because last week we spent most of the end of the show talking about how don't cheap out on the tripod. and the only thing I could afford at the end of like putting this together was kind of a cheap tripod. It's got no reviews, and I've never heard of this brand, but I stuck it in there.
Well, I mean, there are some caveats there. I mean, you can make it work. Yeah. The good thing about a tripod is no matter what brand you buy, they're never wobbly because they're tripods. That's just how physics works.
Well, I don't know. I've put my hand on some of them.
Well, maybe the top is, but like the legs.
Yeah, got it. Got it. Yeah, that's the thing. You folks, one PSA from today, whatever tripod you have, make sure the head is properly fixed on top. I see all of you kind of maneuvering your cameras at times and not loosening the ball head, and you slowly loosen the actual head of the tripod from the base. Many tripods, their heads are replaceable, so it'll slowly come off. And if the head falls off, it doesn't matter how secure the tripod feet are or how secure your camera is to the head, it's still going to hit the ground and make terrible noises.
Yeah.
So
you don't like, I don't like those noises.
Yeah. No, they're not good. They're
No.
not good. All right. We had one Q&A question that came in, I think, that I wanted to address. And that's, Andrew, do I have any word on the Z60 rumors? That would be a follow-up to the Z50. Andrew, I feel like we answered this 2 weeks ago. The Z50 is still a pretty new camera. I really think it's going to be at a solid 6 months, maybe even close to a year before we start to hear rumors about a replacement for that.
Yeah.
Partly because it's new. Go ahead.
Well, it's new, and also I think just given the times we're living in right now, I don't know how many people are really even clued in that the camera even exists. You know, it's I think, you know, for us who kind of all nerd out on this stuff, we know the day that something launches, but the general public or people who are just getting into photography, they don't know. I mean, it's funny how much people don't even know what mirrorless is. I mean, I talk to photographers all the time who are like, I don't even know what that is. I wouldn't know how to use it. And I'm like, well, it's the same stuff.
I mean, shutter button.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, I definitely think by year's end, some version of a Z8, Z9, some ultra pro version of the full frame has to be announced, or Nikon is not going to be around much longer. So
yeah. I think one thing that could give us some clues, Andrew, is whether or not they release over the next couple of months or some APS-C Z lenses that shows real support kind of behind the smaller. But I think as David said, it's the time we're in. And also I think it's Nikon. Even before this hit, Nikon was a little like, we were not doing well, to be honest with you all.
Yeah.
And we are really looking critically at our lineup and deciding what we should keep moving forward and what we shouldn't. And this camera did come out after they said that, but it's clear that I think they don't have a ton of confidence, and they need to watch to see how this sells to see if they want to even follow it up. But I would expect that they would. And then one quick last question. Jamie just asked me if I've had hands-on with the LG Gram laptop. That's LG's Gram, 17-inch. No, I haven't. I've heard good things. Is that the one? It is. It has a nice 17-inch display, great battery life, and only weighs as much as a typical 13-inch. Wow. Sounds kind of nice, except it has Windows. But no, just being mean. Windows isn't too bad. All right.
I don't even know how to use Windows. I don't even know how to turn it on.
It's got a shutter. I mean, no, it doesn't. It's the same. All right. I think that wraps up our show. David Carr, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. I miss Steve. I feel like, you know, it's the three amigos, you know, we got it, but he'll be back. It was
a good run while it lasted, but hopefully he'll be back.
Exactly.
I think we made it 10. We made it 10 episodes with all three of us together. We did have to cancel one in there, but we got them all. But thank you so much for hanging out with me and lending your thoughts on this and sharing what you'd spend $2,000 on. I don't know what we're going to talk about on the show next week, but hopefully Steve will be back, and we'll probably talk a little bit about Star Wars, a little bit about iPads, a little bit about Macs, and a little bit about drinks.
Absolutely.
So
mine's gone.
That's good. We're ending the show where we're supposed to be then. Yeah. All right. And if you're watching this and you haven't already, give it a quick thumbs up. And of course, follow David on Instagram and check out his YouTube channel. It's linked right down below. And if you're not a Pen member, you should consider joining. I'm not just a salesman. I am a person that truly believes in people do infomercials, and sometimes I'd watch and be like, are they really that excited about it? And I really am as excited about Pen as I hope I seem, and as I talk about the community. It is a fantastic learning educational resource that I'm super proud of what we put into it. I think the value is incredible. And of course, the community, as I've already waxed poetic so much today, is a wonderful community to be part of. So consider joining photorec.tv/Pen. In chat room, I look over here at you. Thank you so much for joining us. Yes, thank you for sharing your thoughts and comments and voting for black and white or color. And we'll see you again next week.
Yes. See you guys soon.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.